Welcome back to the show. Feels like a good time to switch things up. Let's talk some fantasy. For that, we throw it over to our friends Pete Jensen and Nick Alberga, the guys from Fantasy on Ice. Guys, take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, let's look at some early returns from the trade deadline, right? We're about a week since the deadline came and went. We'll start with Andrew Kopp and Frank Vatrano from the New York Rangers, right, Nick? Whichever way you slice it, these are good pickups because they're playing in the top 6 for one of the best teams in the league with elite line mates.
Yeah, personally, I like what the New York Rangers have done in the last week, and certainly picking up these two guys. And you look at the top 6 looks of Andrew Kopp coming over from Winnipeg, a goal and 4 helpers, playing with Panarin and Strome. Obviously, Strome's a bit banged up right now, so we'll see what happens there going forward. And then Frank Vatrano's got 4 goals in 6 games. Pete, I just think it really shores up the top 9, if you will, for the New York Rangers.
Definitely. And even with that Strome potential absence for any period of time, Kopp can play center. He could play wing at a very high level. He could also shift down to the third line if need be come postseason time. So really like that from the Rangers' future standpoint. And also wanted to note Frank Vatrano was 3rd on the Florida Panthers over the past 4 seasons combined in the goals category, an important one behind only Barkov and Huberdeau. So that's high praise, and he's translating so far since that deal. There's also Taylor Radish from the Chicago Blackhawks, came over in the Hagel trade, and this guy is flourishing right now, playing actually on power play 1 with Kane, DeBrincat, Dylan Strome, and Seth Jones. So a loaded first unit, and he's got 2 power play goals already since the trade.
Under the radar, that's the way I would describe this. I mean, all the focus clearly is on Brandon Hagel and how he'll fit with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But obviously, you can't not like the value Chicago got in that deal. 2 NHL-ready guys, certainly Radish being one of them there in the top 6. So, yeah, I'm all over this file. And certainly, I think you look at the potential of him on the waiver wire. He's free. Go pick him up. A busy week for Chicago. So certainly that's a prevailing story from the deadline. And Pete, how about our guy, Evgeny Dadnov? What a story in Sin City. This guy's dealt to Anaheim, then isn't dealt. Then all he does is score and produce for this team. I mean, the ironic part about the whole thing is that Dadnov was red hot even before the trade, right?
He was, and now he has consecutive multi-point games, consecutive wins for the Golden Knights in that span. Who knows? Maybe we could look back at this if the Golden Knights sneak into the playoffs and end up making the deep run that we know they're capable of. Maybe we look back at this as the turning point and the season saver for Evgeny Dadnov. So really exciting stuff. And he's on line 1 with Jack Eichel, Nick. So now that there's a Pacioretty setback, which is unfortunate news for the Golden Knights sealing this season, it at least is a silver lining for Dadnov because he could actually stick in that spot. And then bonus would be if Mark Stone comes back at any point. So Dadnov is really a guy that could like win you your fantasy championship, right? If this thing sticks for the rest of the season. And then also like the Golden Knights have a goaltender to look out for as well right now with the Leonard injury. Logan Thompson is heating up for sure.
I crunched the numbers, 5-3-0 since the All-Star break, 2.85, 917, which is obviously a blessing in disguise for this team. As you mentioned, Robin Leonard's been banged up for the most part the last little while. So they needed somebody to emerge, not to mention Laurent Brossoit isn't feeling right these days. So good on Logan Thompson. That's a great story. And I just think there's a lot of untapped value in Vegas right now. Like Nicolas Waz, another guy clearly playing right now with Eichel and the aforementioned Dadnov, Alec Martinez coming back finally. And that leads us to a defenseman to look at on waivers in Los Angeles. Sean Durzi, since Drew Doughty went down, 10 games, a goal, and 7 assists, Pete.
Wow, yeah, he's one of the best rookies this year in terms of power play points, actually second behind Mo Seider for the Red Wings. So Durzi's got 12, Seider's got 17 power play points. And yeah, with Drew Doughty injured and potentially out for the rest of the regular season, it's the same type of thing. Bad news for the Kings. This has been a consistent, resilient team in the Pacific Division, and Durzi is capable of manning the first power play unit and covering categories as well. Not only 6 points in his past 5 games, but 13 shots, 6 hits, and 10 blocks. So if you're in one of those bangers leagues, you got to give Durzi a look. There's actually some trends this week on defense, and let's carry it over to the NCAA tournament pool. Some players, of course, as their seasons end, they come over to the NHL, they sign their entry-level deals, and Jake Sanderson is a guy high pick for the Ottawa Senators that could join this team in a matter of time after signing his deal over the weekend.
That's right, Pete. I am fired up for his potential debut as early as this week. I know he's been banged up at bits and pieces over the last little while, but certainly you look at the body of work, 26 games played, 23 games played, 26 points, 8 goals with North Dakota. He captained the World Junior team for Team USA, and the pedigree's there. And certainly I think we both like the fit right away in Ottawa, more so because Thomas Chabot is done for the year. So there's an opportunity to QB that first power play unit, right?
Yeah, we all know the value Chabot provides when he's healthy. And yeah, at some point, maybe in the month of April, we could see this guy. It's really exciting because he led all NCAA defensemen in points per game this season. Yeah, you got that right. He had a better points per game average than Owen Power and Luke Hughes from Michigan. So that's an accomplishment for sure. There's also 2 other guys, Nick Abruzzese, the center for Toronto. You know that Matthews and Tavares are higher than him in the pecking order, but still Toronto has a very deep offense and maybe a second power play that could benefit from the addition of a depth signing. He's a 4th round pick, Nick, but it sounds like he's really been making an impact, not only at Harvard, but also in the Olympics.
And he's smart too, right? Being a Harvard student.
Yeah.
But certainly I think, you mentioned the Olympic pedigree as well. And I just think there's a potential in Toronto. I think a lot of people clearly are waiting for Matthew Knies' season to end. I think he's going to be on the periphery in terms of fantasy in Toronto. But I think there's potential because that 4th line of the Maple Leafs, Pete, really hasn't been offering much. A couple struggling vets, Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons. So I think you will see Abruzzese get into the lineup and they'll get a look at what they can do because certainly depth is vital this time of year, and the Maple Leafs trying to do some damage here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, it's been a while since they've won a playoff series, so depth scoring going to come up big. Not to mention, I mean, William Nylander was recently demoted. Ilya Mikheyev propped to the second line, so there is opportunity to grow in that lineup right now.
Definitely. And one last guy to keep an eye on, Jordan Harris, Montreal Canadiens prospect, could be joining the team in a matter of time. And this guy, his numbers were decent this year, but I look back to last year when he had 19 points in 19 college games. Really impressive what he did at Northeastern. He's an older guy than Sanderson. He's 2 years older, but sometimes on defense, right, Nick, you're looking for anything you could get because it's a very scarce position. And with Ottawa and Montreal being non-contenders right now, it doesn't matter. You could still get spoiler value, and you could have maybe a longer period of time to reap the benefits of these guys with the season going deeper into April this year.
Definitely. And in general, I think it's an exciting time of year as we make our push to the Stanley Cup playoffs. You're seeing NCAA seasons end, and I'm just wondering what the over-under is on Michigan players turning pro. I have it set at 58, Pete.
Yeah, they have a first order of business to try to win the national title, and then you're going to see some of those guys playing a big part for their NHL teams potentially as early as this season. Remember to check out NHL Fantasy on Ice wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Back to you, Jackie and Weeksy.
All right, I await for my guest request on the pod. Haven't been on yet this year, just saying, but you boys do a great job. Like they said, it is the Fantasy on Ice podcast. You can find it everywhere podcasts are found.